Hey everybody, today we're going to talk about getting Switch emulation installed on Batocera version 39. Now, Switch emulation is not officially supported by the Batocera team, and I've expressed my feelings about emulating current gen consoles previously, where I've said that I don't agree with doing it if you're going to be pirating games, but I think it's okay if you want to play games that you already own on an emulator on your PC. In the case of the Nintendo Switch, for example, I myself, I own a Switch. I own the games that I emulate, but I just sometimes prefer to play them on my PC. And there have been instructions in the past on how to do this on Batocera, but recently things have changed where the Yuzu emulator no longer exists, and I wanted an easy way to always be able to install that, at least the last version of it, which I believe was 1734. But the first thing we're going to need is we're going to need to go over to the Internet Archive, and we're going to search for Batocera Switch Offline. And we're going to scroll down. I think it's the third result here. Yeah, the Batocera V39 Switch Offline Installer. We're going to download this. This is basically a gzip file. Just download that and be sure to transfer it over to your Batocera system. Okay, so I'm SSH'd right now into the command line of one of my Batocera systems. In this case, it is my Steam Deck running Batocera 39. And I've already transferred that file we downloaded from the Internet Archive onto here, and I put it in the user data folder. So there is my Batocera-switch-offline.tar.gz. So I'm going to go ahead and extract this. And we'll give it a minute here to complete. There it is. And what it's done is extracted everything into this switch-installer directory. So we've got a user folder, a user data folder, and an install.sh file. Now previously, the method to install Switch emulation on Batocera was to use this command right here. And what that does is it downloads a script from switch.batocera.pro and then tells it to execute that script in bash. What this package that we've downloaded does is, see, when you ran that command, it's not only going to download the script and execute it, but the script itself goes out and downloads all the files from various sources that you're going to need. And with Yuzu getting shut down, I began to think, what happens if this goes away? So what this package does is lets us do exactly what that script was doing, but with everything already sort of downloaded and preceded. So once you've downloaded the initial tar.gz, you don't need to connect out to the internet during the installation. And all the installation is going to do is make some folders and move some of those files you just extracted into the appropriate locations. And it's also going to run Batocera save overlay, because some of the files are modified outside of user data, or they're placed in locations outside of user data. So it needs to do that save in order to retain them through reboots of your Batocera system. So at this point, all we need to do is run. I'll do a // and then install.sh. I'd already made a couple of the directories, so if you saw that message where it couldn't create directory, that's just because it already existed. The script itself doesn't really have any logic built in to check if it's existing or not. It's a very simple, typed in a minute script, but it gets the job done. And it also has a little note here at the end that you still need to add your own title.keys and prod.keys files to user data BIOS switch. I've actually already done that. So if we go in there, okay, there are the files. I've already added them, so I should be good to go. Now, I am doing this on a Steam Deck, and I will tell you, the performance with Ryujinx is not great on the Steam Deck. So I would advise not using it. And also, whenever I try to use it after installing this way on Steam Deck, I always have to go into the F1 menu, applications, run Ryujinx, and set up the input there. Otherwise, the input doesn't work. But it just does not perform well. I get a lot of input lag. So I would say if you're doing it on a Steam Deck, definitely go with Yuzu. And what we just did install Yuzu version 1734, which to my knowledge is the last available version of that emulator. It also put Ryujinx on here. But again, if you're using a normal x86-64 PC, yeah, you can swap between Ryujinx and Yuzu and you shouldn't really have any problems. Use whichever one works best for the game you're trying to play. But on the Steam Deck, I would stick with Yuzu. Okay, so we're on the Steam Deck running Batocera 39. So you'll notice we don't see anything for Nintendo Switch. And I did already copy a game over. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit Start and go to Game Settings and Update Games List. One thing I'd like to note is that I did stick the Switch Updater in here. So you can run that. Now, since Yuzu is no longer going to be updated or maintained, it's just going to update Ryujinx. And as long as the script still works and still functions, you can update Ryujinx like this. If you go on the command line into the user data /system/switch folder, in there you'll find a backup folder. And inside that folder, I've put the Yuzu app images. If something happens and this updater does break Yuzu and it stops functioning, you should just be able to copy the app images out of that backup folder and into the main folder. So they would just go into user data, system, switch, and then you'd have the Yuzu app images in there. But if we go into our Nintendo Switch folder, I've added the game World's End Club. And if we go into Advanced System Options, we can choose our emulator as we normally would with Yuzu Mainline, Early Access, or Ryujinx Continuous, Avalonia, or LDN. To be honest, when I'm using Ryujinx, I usually use Continuous, and when I'm using Yuzu, I tend to use Mainline. So I'll set this to Yuzu Mainline. While I'm in here, I'll go ahead and just pop this over, the graphics backend over to Vulkan. And let's just say player 1 pad type is a Pro controller. And so there you have it, just a quick and easy way on how you can get Switch emulation up and running that hopefully will, at least for a while, be future-proofed in a way that will allow you to always have that version of Yuzu, that latest version of Yuzu. installed, even if something were to happen and the switch.batocera.pro script were to be taken down.